There's more happening above your head than you think. Storms, claims, contractors who talk a big game. Eaves and Ridges is the show that cuts through it. Roofing, HVAC, plumbing, tree service, and everything else that keeps a home standing strong. Real stories, real pros, real answers, no sales pitch. This is Eaves and Ridges. And now, your host, Steve Pike.
Well, welcome to the Eaves and Ridges What's Under Your Roof podcast. I'm Steve Pike. I am your host, and we are in the SETX Roofing Pros studios. And today we have a great guest. We have our production manager, Patrick. He comes to us with 30 years of builder's experience from the ground up. Everything from digging out the foundation to putting the shingles and the siding and the windows and all points in between. So he comes to us at SETX Roofing Pros, and what we're going to talk about today are some of the things that you should expect from a legitimate contractor. One of the things that are going to help you to make sure that after you've signed a contract, you have a good project coming your way. And with no further ado, I would like to introduce Patrick Williams.
So, I'm Patrick. I am the production manager here at SETX Roofing Pros, and I'm glad to be on the show. Thank you, Steve.
Hey, man, thanks for coming in and taking the time with me today. I want to talk to you about how you got into the trades to start, and then I'll come up with a couple of follow-up questions. How's that?
Well, I got in the trade. So my grandfather is a home builder here in Southeast Texas and has been. And I started out, sweeping floors and picking up trash just like everybody else, I guess. And, since I was old enough to get in the truck and go, I've been on the job site.
Man, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, you got a little bit of gray in your beard too. So that's been a minute. So, it's very similar to my story. My dad was also a home builder, and I was picking up nails at 8, 9 years old, sweeping floors, all that kind of stuff. So bring back a lot of fond memories. And so how did you land in the roofing space?
I had been at Habitat for Humanity for 17 plus years. So, and like you said, I've kind of done it all, everything from the drawing to the building. And I had been working with a local home builder, and friends of mine invited me in to kind of have a conversation about roofing sales. I've never done sales. I didn't think that was exactly a good fit for me, and they thought different. And after a conversation or two about it, I got to see it in motion, and I thought, man, I think I could do this, and I came and had a conversation with you, and a real frank conversation, actually, it became very apparent that we have a lot of the same moral compass, same driving factors, which was something that I was very concerned about getting into sales. I didn't want to work for just a crummy sales guy. I didn't want to be that pushy salesperson. And it didn't take long. I got to experience some of what happens right here at SETX Roofing Pros. And it was okay, this is a perfect fit. And then, I was offered the position of project manager, and it was an even better fit because that is producing is what I do. It's what I've always done. And so, I'm just glad to be on the team.
Man, I'm really glad that you joined us. You joined us, what, about a year ago?
Actually, it was a year ago, a few days. So, yeah, we just made my year anniversary. And I tell you what, I couldn't be happier that the trajectory of the company has been just like a rocket ship. And it's, there's a lot of growing pains and things like that. But, man, it's really been great. And I think that we're going to continue to on the same trajectory, which is straight up.
All right, man. Well, look, man, the other thing I want to comment about is that new lid you've got. Your old one was a little worse for wear, and that one looks really sharp.
So Yeah. The other one is a little worse for wear. It's the exact same hat. I love my Statesman's, and I like just a little bit different than, the traditional cowboy hat. And, I think a good hat is just the top to the rest of a well-dressed man. And
All right.
I like to be that.
Man, are those ostrich skin shoes you got there?
They are. Who doesn't love ostrich skin? Hated.
So I love my boots, but I love my ostrich boots. They're probably my most comfortable pair. So, look, I know that our audience didn't come in to get fashion pointers from us. So let's see what we can do to get back on track. So that's one of the things that I love about this podcast idea is for it to be an organic conversation, right? I mean, we kind of know what we're talking about, whatever, because this is what we do every day. But I think the real authenticity comes from just having an organic conversation. So one of the things that I think property owners should know is what they should expect after a salesman comes in and they've promised the world, right? And what they should expect from their contractor, and how you make sure that you deliver on the promises that were made for them.
Well, so here we have a process, right? And just like with making a cake, there's a process to it. And if you follow the process, you end up with the same thing, repeatable, right? And that's what we do here at SETX. We try to make it a repeatable process. For the average person, they may buy one or two roofs in a lifetime, right? And so I know it's very uncomfortable, or it's hard to understand a lot of what the salesmen have, because they give them a whole lot of information, right? And it's my job to kind of transition it to the practical world of how, what can they expect? What are the next steps? And, we do this thing called a handoff, and really this is the only company I've ever done it with. And I think a lot of it makes the process very seamless. It allows me to, one, hear what the salesman had promised the homeowner, and it allows the homeowner to voice any questions or objections that may come to light, when we're all three talking. We just kind of walk around the project, look at what the problem areas may be, what concerns the homeowner may have that we need to address directly. And like I said, what has the salesman promised? Because we want to deliver on that, right? We want to do what we say we're going to do. And so in order to do that, we have to know what they said. And so the handoff is really, in my opinion, the most crucial step that we do. That it's not just shingles and nails, right? It's a customer service experience. We ask for their business, and we ask for a 5-star review, and this is one of the ways we got to that.
Okay. So I love that. The handoff is super important. That was one of the things, one of the processes that I put in place. And I know that there have been some occasions since we put that in place recently that there have been some missteps, miscues, things like that. That's the thing that I really want to communicate is that nobody's perfect, right? But when things go wrong, and when I talked with Cody last week, we talked about nobody's perfect, and if nobody's perfect, then what happens when mistakes are made, and who's on the hook for that?
Funny you ask, who's on the hook? If it has to do with production, it's me. If it has to do with sales, it's Cody. And so ultimately, I'm responsible for everything that happens on the job site. Now, that being said, it's important that we set the expectation with a reasonable expectation. The one person's idea of what a workday will entail might be a little different than what we actually do. Where normal people maybe work 9 to 5, a workday for a roofer generally is daylight to dark. And right now, this time of year, that's, 6:30 in the morning till 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. So just communication is key, right? Yeah. And that's really the key to all of it is communication. communication between the salesman and me, communication between me and the homeowner, and just making sure that they're in the loop with everything that's happening. You know, you'd mentioned, what do we do when mistakes happen? Or what do we do when something doesn't go right? And the first thing that we do is we contact the homeowner and we identify the problem, and we make a solution and move forward. It's not a 2 or 3 day issue. It's a right now thing. Uh, you know, even though they're only buying 1 or 2 roofs in their lifetime, every day on their job is important to us, and every minute on the job.
So what kind of mistakes, and one that comes to mind, and I mentioned one with Cody last week about we stepped through the ceiling on a redeck. All plywood was off, and we stepped through the ceiling in the master bedroom. We repainted the entire ceiling, retextured, did the drywall repair, all of that. And while the customer was angry on the front end, by the time we were done, we got a 5-star review because of how we responded to the mistake that we made. So another one that comes to mind would be a flower bed that got damaged. That was very, very important to the homeowner. And we had promised that we weren't going to damage it. And there was some miscommunication. I understand that, but with the crew that was executing the work, and there's always that potential. But what really impressed me was when you got notified, you immediately went to the flower shop and started finding these plants, right? Not the flower shop, but the nurseries, right? And started identified the plants, you took some damaged plants, figured out what it was, and started to. So let's just kind of pick up there and
Okay.
see where we go.
Yeah. So we're problem solvers, right? And that's the one you're speaking about specifically. You know, that was crazy for me because I don't know plants. I panicked immediately. I'm gonna start sweating bullets like Mike Tyson at a spelling bee, you know. And but anyway, so I downloaded. I got on Google. I downloaded a plant identifier app and took some pictures. And I was like, okay, so this is a purple iris, tiger lily, whatever, right? And you're right. I ran to the 3 or 4 different nurseries to try to find one that were like kind of size. And but with all of that was happening, I think the customer was most impressed not with the fact that it was all flowers. I mean, of course, I think that is part of it, but that right then it was not it was as important to us as it was to her. I mean, a lot of times when there's an issue, as a homeowner, their defenses are up, right? Their hackles are up. They're ready to go to war 2 minutes after the situation, which is when I generally get there, right? I respond as quickly as possible. And Cody and I had gone through one just last week where there was a difference of opinion on how something should have been done. And the homeowner had a little experience with windstorm insurance type stuff, and he knew what he wanted. And when we got there, he asked me, why did you do it like that? I said, well, because if this was my house, that's how I would have done it. And I said, but it doesn't matter why I did what. You just tell me what you want, and we'll make it happen. And he immediately kind of took a breath and calmed down. It was like, okay, I apologize. I was like, you don't have to apologize. He said, no, I do, because I was ready to fight. Now, there is no fighting. We're going to do the best that we can do. And if there's something that you can add to improve that to us, then we'll add it to it. That's what we do.
Well, that's good. I mean, I like and I think what we're leading up to is specifically, what are some red flags that, a customer should look out for in advance of hiring a contractor. That's the first, right? What can they look for on the front end that proves that they're going to do that? I have a couple of ideas, and I might interject, but I want to hear what your ideas are. And especially since I didn't ask you this question, and give you a chance to prepare.
So for me, the biggest thing is when you call, do they answer? Hey, and this goes for me and any other homeowner. I'm actually interviewing some yard guys right now. And I've got one that I wanted him to be the guy, but I've called him 3 times and I can't get in touch with him. And this is when I'm trying to give him my business. How's it going to be once he actually has my business? And so I think just the clear communication is so important. Timely manner, respect my time so I can respect yours. If I tell you I'm going to be there at 12 o'clock, I'm not there at 11:45. I'm not there at 12:15. Now I'm there at 12 o'clock. And so these little indicators, I think, really indicate a lot.
Okay. So one of the things that comes to my mind when I'm researching a contractor to do work at my place is I go and I read the reviews. I don't just look for the number of 5-star reviews they have, or 4 stars or 1 stars. I don't just look at that. I read the contents of the review. And so I challenge anybody to go and look at, read our reviews. And you will see that we have 5-star reviews, but if you read the comments, you will find that all of those jobs didn't go off without a hitch, but all of them speak to how we handle the problem and resolve the problem to the customer's complete satisfaction. And that's one thing that comes up in my mind whenever I'm looking for somebody. It's not just the number or the number of reviews or the different stars, right? But what happens inside the review?
The devil's in the details, right? And when you read those reviews, when the job goes well, it's easy to look good, right? It was a great job. Da-da-da. Okay, thank you. 5 stars. Great. Have a good day. But what really tells is, what did they do when there was a problem? When the wrong color was sent out, what happened? What happens when there's an inspection schedule that didn't happen? How do you correct these problems? And not just that, the other thing is, and it goes back to our core values, and that is character. What we do when nobody's looking. And I think that's very important. And I think that if you read the reviews, like you said, you'll see that not every one of them are rosy. Not every one of them went off without a hitch, but every one of them went off to the satisfaction of the customer at the end. And I really think that's what's important. We can only control what we can control, right? But in doing our part, we do a big part.
So we all look at different ways that companies advertise, and have websites, Facebook pages, and all of those things. Do any of those things come to your mind? When you're choosing a contractor, do any of those things add to your trust signals, social proof, things like that?
Of course, the Uncle Google is everywhere, right? And he never forgets. And so, when you look at somebody up, and it's not just Google, right? It's the Better Business Bureau, it's the Chamber of Commerce. There are a lot of things that, and if you're buying a 6-pack of Coca-Cola, it's not a big deal if they're not got good customer relations, right? But if you're spending $10 or $20 or $30,000 on something, that's like buying a car, right? You want to go somewhere where you're comfortable and you feel like you're going to be treated right. You're going to be taken care of. Dare I say, treated like family. I want to be treated. I want us to treat our customers better than family.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like we might be related. So yeah, that's important. So what is the top question that comes to your mind that you wish every homeowner or every property owner would ask before they engage and commit to do business with someone?
What question would I like the homeowner to already know when we
No, for them to ask whoever they're going to do business with, right? Whether they're doing business with SETX Roofing Pros or anybody else in any other trade.
What are you willing to do to keep my business?
Okay.
Not get it, but keep it. You know it. So we go to a bunch of houses and give options, give bids, give solutions to their problems. But what are you willing to do to keep my business? You know, something I've seen since I've been here is that a pipeline of business is very important. And I've noticed through working with some of our salespeople that, you know, these guys have their integrity shows because they have a list of customers that when the customer needs something, they're not looking for SETX, they're looking for this person. He's at SETX, great. And so it just kind of goes back into the integrity thing that I'm real big on. I like knowing that the guys are selling stuff that needs to be sold, and that we're providing a good service to our customers.
Yeah. So when you are doing your production walkthrough with the customer, and are there what's the craziest? Yeah, I think that what's the craziest question or comment that you've heard a property owner, and that's whether it's commercial or residential, it's the craziest request you've heard at doing the handover with the sales rep?
Circle back to that one. Let me think about it for a minute.
Okay, so one comes to mind, and I'm gonna help you out. We may be able to capture it in this segment. When a homeowner wants to save the old metal that's coming off of their roof.
Yeah. So, you know, when we're walking around, I know the job I'm talking about, and the homeowner was like, you know, I want this. We're taking a metal roof off of this house, and we're gonna put a shingle roof on. And he's like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna pull my tractor up there to the side of the house, and I want y'all to stack it on the forks for me, and then I'm gonna drop, you know, so I can take it out to West Texas, and I'm gonna build some deer blinds or whatever it is he's gonna do. And I was just like, oh my God, okay, so this just tripled the length of time that it's gonna take to do this, right? But and again, it's almost like we should have been named Whatever It Takes Construction, because that's kind of what it is, just whatever it takes, you know, to get us there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is, you know, and it's all perspective, right? I mean, what seems crazy to one person, he's got a plan for it.
Yeah, he's got a plan for it, and I understand it, and I respect it completely, for sure, because the metal's not in terrible condition, right? And for our viewers, I think I would just say it was an improper install by another contractor, and you know, it was a really inexpensive bid, so the metal is in pretty decent shape and will work great for deer blinds, etc., but it won't work the way that it was installed on that house to keep the water out. So I think that you had a conversation with the property owner about, I have a feeling that our guys are going to be pulling metal off faster than you can retrieve it with your tractor. So you offered up an alternate solution of, we're going to hand the metal down, we'll stack it up nice and neat and stacks on the ground, and then he can come and he can do whatever he wants to do with it.
That is correct.
And he seemed to be okay with that, right?
Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, and I went so far as to offer, you know, we can put pallets on the ground. And he's like, no, I got forks. They'll slide right in the dirt. It'd be great. And so, and again, it's just communication, right? Because he had a plan. And had we not had that conversation, he would have been very upset to wake up, you know, at 7 or 8 o'clock whenever he got up and we're tearing the metal off and just throwing it down.
Right.
because that's what we'd have done. We'd have wadded it up, put it in a trailer, and hauled it to the dump, And so I'm really glad that he's able to reclaim the material and reuse it. It makes it not feel like such a loss to them.
But I guess it goes to show that there's a difference in terminology too. There's a difference between demolition and reclamation.
That's right.
Right. Reclaiming material for future use is different than a demolition job. And so that was a fun story. I like the way you told it to me earlier, and that's why it was so fresh in my mind. And so what I think, as we get ready to come to a close, what is the one thing that you want our viewers to know? Can you boil it down to one thing that somebody should use to weigh whether or not they're going to choose a contractor?
I would say the most important thing is probably apples to apples. Know what the contract entails, know what you're purchasing. And if you don't know, ask. Because I know our salesman will be glad to explain it and show you apples for apples. Because we do a good, better, best. And generally, our good is more than what everybody else says. So they're giving you one option, right? And we're giving you 4 options. And generally, even our 4th option, the budget guard, is a better option than what they're giving you, because materials matter, right? It's not just shingles. It's not just nails. Materials matter, which is why they're able to offer the 1-270R and things of that nature. So I would say the most important thing is, one, make sure you're looking at apples to apples on the bid. And 2 is go with a company that you trust. And, hopefully we have at SETX earned your trust with a good presentation. We don't have to go back and give you a bid in 2 or 3 days. It's almost like we've done this before. We bid from the driveway. We have the tools necessary, the laptop, the internet access. We have the things necessary to give you a quality experience from the beginning to the end. And I would say, all those things matter.
All right. So to wrap up, I think that I want to ask you another question. So bear with me for just a second. Yeah, I can't think of the other question. So we'll call that. I'm gonna do an outro, and then we'll let the video keep running, and then I'll stop it for a second. All right. Well, today we have Patrick Ramb, our production manager here at SETX Roofing Pros. Talked about a lot of red flags the contractor may have, things that you should be on the lookout for, and things that you should know and be able to compare. The number one thing that we want you to understand is that no matter who you choose, make sure you trust them. Make sure that they have given you a clear scope of work, that it's written, not just, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing while they're pointing up at your roof or your siding or your HVAC or whatever. We're going to do that. No, get a clear and concise scope of work. Have a contract that is legible, that is sent to you electronically so that you can have it in your email. You don't have to worry about losing it. And then lastly, to really wrap up the show, next week, we're going to have Dave Tomlin, one of our sales reps. He's going to be on, and we're going to talk about some things that he looks for and why he gets in an attic every time he goes to look at somebody's roof. So until next time, I'm Steve Pike. This is the Eaves and Ridges, What's Under Your Roof podcast, and I hope to see you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, Click the little buttons down there, click the bell, all of the different places. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Cody.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to keep it interesting. Patrick doing a little talking, Steve doing a little talking, together y'all's doing a little talking. I'll tell you what though, Steve, to me, I feel